First, I want to give an apology. This was not necessarily the video that I expected to do today, but it's my first day back at work and I'm knackered. So rather than a really long and thoughtful and well-researched talk about the Death Watch Space Marines and Kill Team, you're getting a Star Wars Shatterpoint Secondaries tier list because I can do this in an off-the-cuff and fun style, which will interest people. And I know that Nightfall will be thrilled. So here we go. We're going to start with Captain Rex. Captain Rex is going to go straight into A tier. Rex does a lot, and he does it for free. He sort of hands out moves. He hands out hunkers, which is absurd in when he's played with Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is one of the places that you're usually going to find Rex. He also has Steadfast, where he's hunkered in common with a lot of the sort of earlier clones, and he can also hand out heals when people near him get hunger tokens. And in addition to that, he does for a force have the option to make support do extra 5 dice attacks and stuff like that. But Rex is just one of the most consistent like supports. One of those consistent cards, I think, in Shatterpoint, just in general. For a core box model, really hasn't lost any of his potency, and he's no longer the best. For a while, he was the best model in Republic. I don't think he's the best model in Republic anymore, but he's certainly up there, right? Kalani. I'm gonna put Kalani in B tier. I don't think there's anything wrong with Kalani, really. And being able to give the droids extra dice just all the time is very consistent and is very good. But he costs 5. He's kind of awkward to fit in to a separatist list, and his movement ability that he can hand out does require you playing really close and tight to each other. I feel like I've been backwards and forwards on which of the super tactical droids I prefer, and right now I'm firmly on Team Kraken. Let me know in the comments, Team Kraken or Team Kalani. Come on. And yeah, I think he slipped down sort of to B tier, and it's interesting because at one point he was regarded as one of the best units that there was. It was like, well, you're taking separatists who want to take Kalani, and people would go through extreme lengths. So people would take Cad Bane in separatist lists to try and fit in Kalani and Count Dooku, and he was really seen as mandatory. And as we get a bit more distance on it, like I think double super tactical droid is still a thing if that's what you want to do. But I think if you only got one super tactical droid, you're going to go for Kraken. And we'll talk about Kraken later on when we get to him. And he's just easier to fit into lists. There you go. Bo-Katan is going straight up into A tier, but behind Captain Rex. I think Bo-Katan, with her steadfast aura, is just a mandatory auto include in any Mando list. And I know that Mandos aren't top of the meta at the moment, right? But they're the Space Marines of Kill Team, right? They are something that you can play and you can do well, and it's solid, and maybe there's a bit of a ceiling there if you're playing against a very skilled player. But I think Mandos are a really solid team that you can play with, that you can do well, and I think you wanting to run Bo-Katan in any Mandos list, just all the time, forever. Compare and contrast with Gar Saxon. I think Gar Saxon is in C tier. Honestly, I think he's very close to Kalani. He's kind of in a similar little role. I think you're going to see him less than you see Kalani, because the thing is, all the other Mandos play together nicely in other eras, and Gar Saxon is sitting here stuck in the Clone Wars era. Do you know he's a good card and he gets work done? And as that kind of sniper character, I think he's got play. And I think if you're going into a 3-mere and you want to play Mandos, I don't think you dislike taking like Darth Maul and the Red Mandos. Like Gar Saxon is good, but he's B tier because he's definitely someone that you're going to think about second or third, right? Let's go for Clone Commander. Clone Commander Cody's in C. Clone Commander Cody's he did get better, he did get a buff, but he's just difficult to get the most out of. He has Sharpshooter 2, which is great, but he hasn't really got a way to get a focus for free. He has to use an action to focus, which automatically makes him hard to use. And yes, he does now get his jump, and if you can jump and expose people, and then maybe get somewhere with your defensive maneuver, and then you can use the action that you might have used to move to do a focus. But you've got to be judged in the context of he's got to be judged in the context of the rest of Galactic Republic. I think there are so many really good Republic secondaries. Like I think they are the strongest faction in the game for secondaries. I just can't justify him being above C tier. So yeah, that's where Clone Commander Cody lives. Django. Is Django still in A? No. I'm going to put Django top B tier. Django's really good, and Django has diceless displacement. He can be a bit pillow-fisted with his actual attacks, but he does retain the ability to flip a point for you without really rolling any dice. Potentially, he can flip 2 points for you without rolling any dice. The problem is, and the reason that you don't see him very much, is if someone's making a bounty hunter theme list and trying to do things off bounty hunters, he's really hard to include because of his eras. And if someone's playing separatists, there's just a big draw to having some separatist secondaries which have some synergy and do more interesting things with the separatist list. I think that's really Django's issue. I think you can still do really well with him, but I just don't think anymore that he is our first choice. I don't think that your brain goes, oh, where shall I put Django? Yeah. Kraken. Kraken's going to go in A. I think at the bottom of A so far. Kraken has 10 wounds and steadfast and protection and a really good gun and the ability to move battle droids, hand out a dashed one anywhere else on the map. And like his brother, he can also hand out 5 dice attacks for force. But unlike his brother, like I said, he has the steadfast and protection. He only costs 4. He used to fit into lists. I think if you had, granted, he has a bad defensive expertise, but he has 10 wounds. It's part of their drive to try and make the thing you got to understand about the battle droids is they're trying to make them feel like robots by giving them kind of poor defensive expertise and but like loads of wounds, so that it doesn't feel like they're dodging the hits, like they're taking the hits and chunks getting blown out of them, but they just kind of keep going, right? Because they're not feeling the pain, which I think is cool. And I think Kraken. It's pretty hard for me at the moment to think about a separatist list, like just a normal 2-squad list that doesn't include Kraken. So it does make him A tier. It does make him A tier, right? Barriss Offee. I'm gonna put Barriss in B. I might revise that later. I'm going to put Barris in B. I don't know where. She's an interesting one. So Zimbad just took Barris to a tournament and got some success with her with Mace Windu. And I remember saying to him at the time, well, why wouldn't you just take Padawan Ahsoka? Why wouldn't you just take Snips, as she's generally known, who I think is better, and I'm still going to put her in the tier list above Barris. But I can't deny, I don't think, that Barris very definitely has play, right? I think she clearly has play. I think she might be being slept on by some people. Like I say, Galactic Republic probably has the best selection of secondaries. Like that is probably their strongest slot, right? And so even if you have a very good secondary like Barris, she can start to fall away because there's other ones that you'd want to include faster. But you know what Barris has? Um, she's very mobile. She can throw in extra, throwing in 2 extra dice to someone like Anakin or Mace for free is not nothing, right? She's got the potential of full move, and she's got the ability, if you have the force for it, probably only a once per game thing. She does cost 2 force, but she does get the ability to dicelessly displace someone as well. Yeah, so while she's not like a quick auto pick, I think Barris is definitely worth thinking about for sure. Oh, isn't that Reva? I'll just call her Reva because I can never remember whether she's fourth sister or third sister because I can never remember the numbers of the sisters. That's why people call her Reva. I'm clearly hovering my hand over A. She's an auto include for certain lists as long as you have other inquisitors or inquisitores, I should say, in your list to boss around, then you want Reva. And if you don't have those things, you don't. Does that make her top of B because her use is pretty limited? I'm gonna put her top of B. I think she's one of those secondaries that's gonna be pretty mandatory in the specific list where she's mandatory, but I think it has to be that particular kind of list set. It doesn't have to be full Inquisitors, but you need to be going for the whole I'm gonna do some stuff with Inquisitors to want to take her. I'm torn. I'll leave it there for a minute. I might move in a minute. I think Obi-Wan is going into A tier. At the moment, I'll put him in the bottom of A tier. Obi-2, as he is sort of colloquially known, is really on the rise at the moment. He got what a lot of people took to be a nerf in the rebalance, and I don't know if it was because, and a lot of people have said this is not some hot take from me, but even if it made him less powerful, what it made him is a lot more palatable. He being able to just disarm people all the time doesn't feel as obnoxious as what he used to do, and yet it's still really good. And I think Obi-2 is an obvious antidote to lists like Anakin, anything that's relying on a super hard special Jedi with great offensive expertise, and you just turn around and disarmed. Vader 3, are you disarmed? And I'm not saying aggro lists are top meta, but they're definitely in the meta, right? They're definitely in consideration. And the way he uses aggro lists is quite funny. We go for Savage. I'm going to put Savage in C. I'm going to put him above Cody, though. Savage isn't awful. He just is a slot machine. You charge him in, you attack, you roll your attack dice. You either wound the bad guy, which is great. Well, he is the bad guy, but you either wound the guy you're attacking, which is great, or your dice say no and you don't, and that's your turn. And look, yes, he is still ultimately then he's 10 wounds again and steadfast on a point, which is really good. He has 0 ability to swing 2 points, right? He's not moving anyone else. And he doesn't have any pushes, so it's not even certain that you're going to activate him and swing a point. And he's not, I think, if you're trying to play Dathomir, you'll take him reluctantly. I tried to make him work in Separatist for a long time because I think he's cool. I just really do think he's cool, but I don't think he's the best choice in a Separatist list at the moment. Pons. I am more up on Pons than I think a lot of people are. I'm going to slot him in near the bottom of B at the moment. Pons, you know, he gives that a dash, or he can use his dash himself, which I think is important. He only costs 3, and he gives you infiltrate, which lets Galactic Republic have something where they can compete on the wide maps, right? On Nevertell and on First Contact, which are not what Republic want to be playing generally. So I quite like Pons. Maybe it's not his meta now because people are wanting to run Delta Squad and other stuff. There's not much room for Pons. Maybe in a Premier you can find room for Pons. I think Pons is a little bit undervalued though, so I'm going to stick him in B. I know a lot of people put him in C. Yeah, we'll stick Pons there. Aura Singh is interesting and is going in the middle of B as well. Aura Singh is someone that you think about taking in a lot of lists. I think there's Dathomir lists where she takes Dathomir. There's Rift Tamsin lists where she can take Aquatic, right, and give you a fourth dice. There's definitely places for Aura Singh. She's powerful. She's mobile now. Powerful mobile now as well. I think she can get work done. You just don't see that much of her because she costs 5, and she's just a little bit troublesome to try and include in a lot of lists, right? But I think she's a cool model. So one list that I've been, you consider things like with Separatists, if you have like Grievous, Nossa, and Aquas, and then would you run Riff with Aura and the B1s to have an extra aquatic body? But you want to run Kraken because he's A tier is a lot of the answer to that. And so that's why she's B, because she's very often a second pick or someone that you might look for if you're trying to fill a Premier roster that's like an anchor or something. And then in Dathomir, I've not played it yet, but I like the idea of, alongside Mother Talzin's box, maybe you take Darth Maul or a Sing, and then I'd like the Padawan learners. I think that could, and then you give Aura Dathomir. I think that could work well. But she's one of those where, again, it's just awkward. She's an awkward pick. Good, nothing wrong with her, just outclassed by some of the stuff in the tier above. Sabe. I'm going to put Sabe in the bottom of C. I think she's probably the best thing about Handmaidens. Better individually as a card than Padme. I don't genuinely understand why you'd be taking it unless you were trying to do something else interesting. But Coordinated Assault Dash is interesting, She can be very, very mobile. Yeah. I don't think she's D tier yet, because I think that bar for D tier is quite high, but you can definitely see D tier from where she lives. Stormtrooper Sergeant is A tier. Stormtrooper Sergeant is A tier, and he's gonna go right near the top of A. He's gonna, well, yeah, he's gonna go there. Stormtrooper Sergeant costs 3 points. He does cool mobility stuff. Empire have a lot of really good 7 sub-cost things that they want to be able to use, and yeah, I think Stormtrooper Sergeant's he's an indispensable piece of Empire kit that Empire players wouldn't be able to live without. And he's not bad. He's a good free cost. Yeah. Boosh. Boosh would be in D, but he's going to go to the bottom of C because I think there's now basically one list where Boosh actually does stuff. If you can take Cassian with Boosh and Bazin Churret, and then CAD and IG-88, and something else like Bounty Hunters, I guess. But because she has like the Rebel tag and the Bounty Hunter tag, if you're running CAD Cassian, then suddenly there's a place for her where she can do quite interesting things. Some people have talked about running her with under Jin just to get to deal with her force cost and spend momentum to get her dice displacement. I think that's overstretching it a little bit, but I think she's in an awkward place now because she has play with CAD Cassian, that if I was to put her into D tier and tacitly be saying she needs a great big buff, it would propel that list to the moon in a way that I don't like. Paplu. Paplu goes into D tier. No one plays the actual Ewok secondaries unless they're just doing it for fun. Paplu, all his abilities cost a force, right? So he just hoovers up your force, except for his identity, which is weird and lets him use his defender's expertise chart and stuff, but nobody really cares. He just doesn't really do very much. Costs 4 squad points, and his expertise tables on his attacks are awful. So Paplu needs work. Paplu needs, I think, better expertise tables on his spear and his sling would help. I don't think it would. Maybe if it was overpowered, I don't think it would kill him to lose the force cost on main retreat, and that may really give him identity then. Leave or keep the force cost and lose the range 3 bubble, right? Yeah, I think that'd be good. But as it is, he's just kind of pointless. And then that brings on to the other Ewok, and I'm having to look over my shoulder because I can never remember the names of some of these Ewoks because they're never used. Genuinely Wicket. Wicket is better than Paplu. Wicket is better than Paplu. Wicket has an interesting hunting horn ability. Wicket can go. And you're probably more likely to see Wicket on the table than you are to see Boosh or Sabe or Cody. So Wicket can go into C tier. Yeah, that's fine. 3PO and R2D2 can. Now, this is where it gets really divisive because a big part of me wants to put them in A tier because they have this massive bubble of steadfast. They can get pushes and stuff. They can move people around for free. They can do a lot, but they don't do anything on their activations. really. They like if you're lucky, R2 can shove somebody. Um, and you have to decide whether you think that they um, are worth it. Like that class of card where it does stuff, but not on its activation. Like it does stuff, but not on its activation. Right? I I go backwards and forwards. I think there are sometimes food. Honestly, I think I'm going to put them there, which I think tells me that Reva should go up there. Am I saying that C3PO and R2D2 are... I'm going to put them there. Right there. That's where I'm going to put them. Wolf. Wolf's going to go into B. Wolf's going to go into near the top of B. Wolf might go into the very top of B. I'll tell you why. So Wolf, he's not one that you'd go for quickly because there's just so much good stuff for the Republic in terms of secondaries. But the thing with Wolf is he's really good against Delta Squad. One of the things Delta Squad do, and it's funny to me that it's the Republic that have some of the best Delta Squad counters. One of the things Delta Squad do is they say that they cancel a lot of crits on their defensive expertise. And if you have Wolf in your list, Wolf just goes, yeah, you can't cancel my crit. And that is a really powerful and game skewing ability. But then it's like, what else is Wolf doing on his turn? So I think I'm actually going to slide there, right? Yeah, that's where Wolf's going to go. Snips are going right up to the top. I think I currently rate Snips just behind Rex. I think if I wasn't using Rex if I was building that Republic and it wasn't like a Premier thing, and I would want to use Rex first. But I think if you want to use Rex in your other list, like if you want to use Rex with Bad Batch, I don't think you mind using Snips with like Kamakin if that's your other list. Why is Snips so good? She can move a Jedi for free, which is just ridiculously. I mean, so can Rex, right? She's very mobile. She's got the deflect. She can potentially get a 5-dice attack and a jump for free, right? When an allied unit attacks. So you get her up the field, you get her in the right place. She can really bring the extra hurt onto people. And unlike Rex's ability, he has a similar thing, but he has to pay for it. Snips also has a reasonably solid numbers side of her card. She can do good quantities of damage. If she has a really good day, she can do 7, which is pretty good. Melee expertise could be a bit better. It's fair to say. So I think I'll put her there. Yeah. Death Trooper Escort. Well, now I'm in a bind because is he top of A or is he worse than Rex? Because that's really the only choice that we're making when we talk about Death Trooper Escort. Is he better than Rex or is he worse than Rex? Because he's Empire Rex. He does Rex things, but for Empire. I do like protection. I'm gonna put him absolute blistering edge top of A. Right, I think Death Trooper Escort's just really rate him. Yeah, Guam is in D tier. I'll tell you why. Even people that want to play Hondo and the Weequay Pirates usually go, well, I'll swap Guam out for Bosk. Guam is the very definition of a struggle bus. And I know he got buffed, so I feel bad saying it. And he does only cost 3, but I just don't... Nothing on his card makes me happy to see him. He's just this silly little guy. Because he's like, yeah, I've got Sharpshooter too. And you don't gain the benefit of cover. and when I focus, I hunker, and that should be really good, but you can't get the focus from anywhere. So if you want to focus shoot, you're not moving. And then he's got really confusing melee abilities on his card. He's got Pack Hunter, and you're like, why has he got Pack Hunter? He's just a weird little guy. And he doesn't have for a sniper character, he doesn't have it's a pretty good expertise table. I just yeah, he's a struggle. I think if he could, he has Get Moving You Dogs, which gives out a free dash to another allied weak way unit. If he could just do that to himself, right, I think he might have something. I'm going to put him above Paplu. Now, more I read his card, I'm going to put him above Paplu. But people don't take Guam. Now, maybe that's just because Guam's undersold. But when people aren't even taking him or aren't even really considering him when they want to run the box he's in with the other two units that he plays. Right. Oh, has to go in the bottom of C, and bear with me. Nobody runs him. And you could tell me that, well, Phil, you just said of Guam that nobody runs him, and then people replace him with Bosk, so he's in D tier. So why, why does everybody's favourite non-bounty hunter Grief Karga get to go into C tier? Because he's a 3-point cost that breaks ties. And even though nobody uses him, I think there's a real danger that if you make him a little bit better, he becomes ridiculous. And he's in this really weird place where people are like, oh, I don't really like Grief Karga. I don't want to use him. And part of the problem is that you're having to build a bounty hunters list if you want to get the most out of him. And then it's like, but like Bosk's right there, and he has this cool bounty hunter revenge trigger. But I don't know how much better you can make Grief Karga without him suddenly shooting up to A tier, because it's a 3-point cost that break ties. I think Rekka and I really like Rekka and Omega. I think they are low B. How low B do I think they are? I don't think they're that low B. I think they're going to go there. I think Rekka and Omega, I like them, and they show up in Bad Batch lists, and they show up in sometimes in random scoundrel lists as well, right? Weirdly, because they, but I think giving out steadfast and protection is really very good, but it is only a 3 aura, and you can tie yourself up with it, so that's kind of tragic. And I have seen people running him in scoundrels. You don't get the steadfast then. I like steadfast. Yeah, I think he goes into there in the middle of B. Let's go for Mr. Crosshair. Mr. Crosshair is top of B. And he'd be A tier if it wasn't for other considerations, like how we've already got massive issues with. I just really like a lot of the Republic secondaries and think they're really great. So it's hard for Crosshair to be your first choice, right? Because he doesn't really do much for you, but he doesn't really do much for a Bad Batch either. If he had the Scoundrel tag, he'd be broken in Scoundrel lists. It's funny because Crosshair, like I was saying about Wolf, Crosshair's the other thing that's really good at disabling other Republic lists. Like if you're playing a Shinobi list, Crosshair has that ability that Guam has, to be fair, to remove hunker tokens. The difference is that Crosshair can actually use it because he can get a focus. So I really like Crosshair. Hask. How the mighty have fallen. Hask is still B tier. There are. The trouble is, basically, Hask You only want to run him really if you're running Inferno Squad, right? So there's no other hole where he fits. And I think now, even in Inferno Squad, you'd rather have Death Trooper. You'd rather have Death Trooper escort for 4 points if you hadn't already taken it somewhere else on your list. But he's good. I think he's good. Chewbacca. I struggle a little bit with Chewie. He has 12 wounds, which is immense, and he gives out extra defensive expertise. And he has an alright attack. I think he needs to go into B tier. I think he's going to kind of go somewhere. Somewhere. He needs to put Wrecker. Wrecker and Omega need to be further up. And then Chewie needs to be somewhere behind there, I think. I don't think he's a first choice, except in Ewoks. If you're playing Ewoks, he's your first and second and third choice. Because he's an amazing, amazing Ewok. Because Steadfast Chewie is stupid, right? So there's that. But I think in general, in a more general Rebels list, take him. He's not using Han and Chewie, okay, and he does stuff, but he doesn't do stuff in the same way. Like he doesn't really do anything for anyone else. He doesn't really synergize particularly with anything. He wants to be near other primaries, but often your primaries are kind of motoring away. He's a challenge in that regard. Ezra Bridger, I think Ezra Bridger's going there. Ezra Bridger is probably the best secondary in Rebels. Got a really good attack. He's got the ability to break ties. He's quite fast. He can potentially earn you an extra momentum if the stars align. He's got a gun and a lightsaber, which is always nice. I think, and of course, Inspectors is even better because you stick him on a point, and then if somebody goes, "Well, I'm just going to kill Ezra and get him off the point," you go, "Well, okay, but now Kanan's coming to tell you there are things worse than you know, there's things worse than fear." So Ezra is, I think, really good, and then having that dash on 2 expertise as well, especially in the Kanan list. If you don't want to kill him and you're scared to, so therefore you're scared to wound him, and then you're trying to push him off the point that he breaks ties on. The fact that if he gets 2 expertise on 5 dice, he's just dashing back onto the point. He's a bit grim. He's a bit grim. Sabine. I am gonna struggle with the Sabine Callus issue here. Sabine, bottom right. Sabine is pretty good. She's okay. She's quite mobile. She's got a decent attack. If she's playing with Mandos or Spectres, and can get the focus and the sharpshooter, she's got a decent attack. She's one of the very few Rebels secondaries that actually can dash another, which is like really common in Empire and Galactic Republic, and really uncommon in Rebels, and that does give her value. I go backwards and forwards over who I prefer between Sabine and Hask because they do different things, but they compete for similar slots. I'm gonna not Hask, Callus, the other hench, blonde, Imperial-looking dude. But actually, we're not. Callus in Imperials, I think, is okay. Callus in Rebels, I think, is pretty good. Why do I think he's pretty good? Well, in Rebels, he can give out the extra dice to scoundrels, and the scoundrel tag is found on primaries, whereas in Imperials, he's giving out to troopers as well as like spies instead of scoundrels and specters. So it's just a worse set of tags. But Callus, you're not just taking Callus for his ability. He has that ability. He can also have a really good activation. He does want to eat a force, right, to power up his attack, but then he's going to give you 3 shoves and he's going to send someone to the moon. The difference is Callus is having a more reliable good activation and spin, and he's giving you these rerolls if your list can find the force for them. Sabine is potentially having a good activation if she's able to get that free focus off, but she can potentially dash someone else somewhere else onto a point somewhere else and swing two. She has that swing two potential, which Callus doesn't have. At the moment, I prefer Callus, but I really can go backwards and forwards on these two. I think they're so evenly matched, and they compete for the same spot, right? Luke Daring here. I like Luke. I don't run Luke as often as I should, but I'm never that disappointed. I think he's yeah. Luke Camus. He's very list dependent because he gets a reposition for a spy, and rebel spies. You know, you got Jin, you got Cassian, you've got K2SO, you've got Charming Leia. Han and Chewie. It doesn't have to be Rebel Spy. Han and Chewie. It could be Empire Callus if you were doing something weird, or the ISB agents, I guess. He can also do the repo himself, so he can be very mobile. He can like repo, and then he can do his move, and then he can also do a climb for a force. And he has an aura of giving out reroll 2 misses to anybody with a hunker doing a shooting attack, which is really good. Oh, but he has 7 wounds and Bobbin's defensive expertise, so he just dies, right? And I don't mind him in a revenge list, which most rebels is generally doing revenge now, right? Where you send him up and then the opponent goes, "Oh, I'm going to kill Luke then," and you're like, "Well, okay, now I'm going to do this other thing." But that lack of stickability does just make him not a first obvious pick for me. I'm definitely reaching for Luke when that 3 points is going to help me. Like if he fits in the list and does stuff, I'm definitely going to reach for Luke Skywalker. But I don't think I'm going to try and be like, oh, I want to take Luke. I wouldn't play a point down because I wanted Luke over Ezra or Callus or Sabine, like any of the 4-point Spectre Cell Rebel secondaries. But yeah, he's good. He fills the hole. If you have the 3-point hole, he fills it really good. I really like him with Jyn Erso. If you can make that work, if you're taking base and Chorrit with him like that, I think he's a good swap out for Bodhi. I rate him higher than Bodhi. We'll get to there. Firebrand is pointless and doesn't do anything. How much would you like me to talk about Firebrand? Firebrand. I don't really know what they were thinking. And part of the problem is her eras, sure, but actually her era's everybody else's problem. If Firebrand was really good, then people might play Evil Crosshair as a primary. And even though I had Evil Crosshair on D tier in my primaries tier list, and was like, you need to buff Evil Crosshair. I also actually think this like, well, um, um, if you buffed Firebrand, that would probably be maybe enough. Okay. Lobot is B tier. Lobot's really interesting and really cool and really good, and he has lockdown, and he can do stuff with scoundrels, and he's interesting. I feel like Lobot is in an interesting place because if what you want is that lockdown unit and you're willing to pay 5 for it, like K2SO is right there, right? And so you're like, well, okay, but what if I'm not playing Rebels? Well, okay, but are you playing Scoundrels? And Lobot has a lot of ability. He can hand out a focus for a Scoundrel and stuff like this. But it's like, well, sure, but not many lists are synergetic off the Scoundrel tag, right? And so there's these weird characters like Lobot or Hondo where the tag they care about is Scoundrel exclusively. And it's like, well, okay, but if I'm playing Scoundrels, I'm playing Rebel Scoundrels, in which case there's probably better secondaries that I want to take, like K2SO. Or am I playing like Bounty Hunter Scoundrels, in which case look at all the Bounty Hunter secondaries I could be taking. I want to take IG-88, right? That's my 5-cost Bounty Hunter themed secondary. So I'm somehow playing a scoundrel list that isn't Rebel Scoundrels or Bounty Hunter Scoundrels, therefore isn't using K2SO or IG-88 in that 5-point secondary slot. So where am I taking Lobot now? I think he briefly had. There was a moment where people would, when the Cassian box was out, but the Jin box wasn't, where people would swap K2SO for Lobot because people were like, well, Cassian really likes to get the free focus because then Cassian can Shatterpoint himself, give himself Sharpshooter 2 and then snipe somebody's head off. But now, if you're playing Cassian, you're not Shatterpointing Cassian. Like if you're Shatterpointing Cassian, something's gone wrong because you're Shatterpointing Commandos or Baze and Churret, right? And or you're being forced to Shatterpoint somebody else because they need to move somewhere and do a thing. What you're not doing is Shatterpointing Cassian to power up your Cassian Lobot Rube Goldberg machine. Um, so I feel like, having said all that, I feel like we're actually going to move Lobot down a few notches. He just doesn't have a super place at the moment, I feel, which is a shame because there was a glimmer there where he looked like he might. Paz Vizsla. Paz Vizsla's bottom of 8 here. And there was a fad where people were like, "Oh, Paz Vizsla sucks. I'm not going to take Paz Vizsla. I'm going to take Dengar." And people saw some success with that list, with the Mando list that was using Dengar in place of Paz Vizsla. But I don't think he's that bad. He's not very mobile, I guess, and the rest of your list is. But like, unless you're playing a point down and playing Dengar or something like that, there's not really a unit you're taking otherwise in that slot. I mean, to bear with me, you couldn't take Dengar in that slot. What you had to do was take Bo-Katan, who has the right eras, under under the armorer, and then you could take Dengar in your other list, your Mando squad, or whatever you were doing. And so he just, the only way you're not playing Paz Vizsla is if you've taken Bo-Katan in the armorer's box and you're playing a point down over there, and then you want a random other 4-point secondary in your other squad. And I agree that Bo is better for a Mando list and is the more important part. I just don't think. I think Paz is pretty well an auto pick. And I think the world's coming back around to that idea. I'm seeing Mando players taking Paz more often than not again now. Now I'm going to have to answer the really hardest question on here. Is Snowtrooper Lieutenant better or worse than Firebrand? I think he's worse. I think he's a strong contender for worst miniature in Shatterpoint. I was saying this to Zimbad because Zimbad likes to run. You know, like I said, he went to Toronto and came joint second place and he's running Barisofi. He likes to, he likes to run things that I and conventional wisdom doesn't say are very good and does well with them and likes to say things like that really there aren't bad units in Shatterpoint, it's very balanced. Da, da, da. I think there are a couple of units that are just bad, and one is Snowtrooper Lieutenant. I don't think Snowtrooper Lieutenant does anything. I think he's worse than Stormtrooper Sergeant for one more point, which is odd. Boba Fett. Where's Boba Fett? Boba Fett's going to be. Boba Fett is B tier. Coming up there. Boba Fett's really good. He's a bit dice dependent to do what he wants to do. He only does one thing. He does one thing pretty well. Coming up there. It's hard to fit into lists, but you want to fit him into lists because he's Boba Fett, and it's really cool. I think the best way to think of Boba Fett is as an Empire secondary rather than as a bounty hunter secondary. I think Boba Fett can pop out a phenomenal amount of hurt, right? But he doesn't have the sort of ability to affect 2 points, and he doesn't really synergize the rest of your list. But he's cool and he's good and he kills stuff, and he's better at it than like Savage Press and people like this, who are just a killer, you know. So yeah, we'll stick Boba Fett there. Boss. Bosk is in the B tier because Bosk is not your first pick. Bosk, you're never going, oh yeah, I choose Bosk. I want to build a list around Bosk. Bosk is my favorite. But Bosk is this incredibly versatile 3-point cost guy who does stuff. And then if you're playing in Bounty Hunters, he gets a revenge trigger, but people will take him even without the revenge trigger all the time. All the time. Yeah, and I just think he's a doer of things, and he fits really nicely into that bounty hunters list as well. If you want to take someone like Han and Chewie rather than IG-11, is he? Yeah, I think that's where I'll put Bosk because he's not actually like I know I often meme and say, "Oh, Bosk's the best thing in Shatterpoint," but it's a joke. He's not actually the best thing in Shatterpoint. He's merely pretty good. Yeah. Dengar. Dengar's right up there. The thing with Dengar is he's really good, but like there are just often other options, and you can't make Dengar fit in your list. But he's like, I'm really tough, and I'm going to stand on this point, and I'm also going to kill people, and I'm also going to explode if they try and hurt me and come near me, and he's really good. Can't he just doesn't fit easily in a lot of places. I know a lot of people like him under Mando because he can make a bounty hunter reserve for free, and Mando often likes to live in reserve. But there's just something about being steadfast and immune to pin. I think he has incredible value, but he's just a challenging one. Like everybody in B tier, I think he's good. He just has a bit of a struggle actually fitting into a list. And I'm aware my B tier is a bit big, a bit big, but I think we're making a nice curve. IG88B is he's going to have to be right up here, right up here in this sort of zone. IG-88B was someone that nobody took, and then they changed to Cad Bane's eras. And now, if you're building a bounty hunter list, you start with, well, I'm going to take Cad Bane and IG-88B, and then I'm going to think about what else I'm doing with bounty hunters. You know, he's just become mandatory, and he's opened up a whole, basically, he's opened up a whole subcategory of lists that you can term IG-88 lists because of the extra dice that you can give out, and I think that's just really, really worthwhile. Shakti is going into S tier. I don't really understand why anybody builds a Gar list without Shakti in it. I don't. I do, because you can't make a fit, right? Because you want to run. If you want to run Delta Squad and Obi, then I guess you want to run Rex because you want the hunkers. I can see that. Okay. And then you can run a 4-point clone. I get it. But Shakti adds this incredible amount of value in any list. She is the best secondary in the game. She brings a force. Why does she bring a force? And I know she costs 5, but she is a cut above IG-88. She's a cut above Kalani. She's a cut above Paz Vizsla, right? Are any of these other names, mate? You're hearing them and thinking, oh yeah, no, they're better than Shakti. Death Trooper Specialist. I think she's better than Vader 3. Because she's like, oh, I bring a force, and I bring, the best diceless displacement in the game, where you just go, hey, everybody else is off my point now. And she's pretty good at fighting. So I've put an S, so I think she needs a nerf. I don't think she needs to bring a force. I think if she didn't bring a force, people would still take her all the time. All the time. And I think she gets away with it. People aren't regularly calling for Shakti to be nerfed because she doesn't feel obnoxious when you play into her. You don't have a negative play experience. But when you look at everything she's doing, right, she's immune to pinch, she's immune to expose, she brings the force, she gives out a free, a dash for a friend, who could also be a mercenary, by the way, and then a jump for herself, right? She's got force repulse. Yes, it costs 2 force, but it's the only thing on the card that costs force. And it does get to push multiple enemies off a point, right? And then she's just not bad. She her actual attacks are not bad. Yeah, Shakti's a bit good. It's better than the Darveb. The Darveb's going in B tier. The Darveb's going in B tier here. Yeah, there's a real split. I always end up with this real split here at the 3PO zone, right? Where I'm like, I think these are pretty good, but I can't honestly conceive of a list where people would take them. Whereas these are, I think they're pretty good, and I can kind of think of scenarios where you'd pick them. The Darveb, I mean, yeah, you can run them in Aqua Friends if you wanted to run a Dart with Kit Fisto and then the Rift Tamsin box. There's a use for a Darveb. Apart from that, he's got some interesting stuff on his kit. He can do moves. But where is the world in which you're taking a Darveb and not Shakti? Unless you're doing a hipster thing like Zimbad does and trying to prove a point and be like, oh, I can win with an Darveb. Here you go. I'm that good. Fair. But yeah, I don't know. Phil is in D tier. He's at the top of D. I don't know actually there's anything wrong with him. He just doesn't do anything. he's just like, well, I cost 3 and I'm only useful with my squad who also cost 3. And for a hot minute there, we looked like we were going to do cool things with, with Mace Windu, and then they made Mace Windu have more squad points. So now what's the point? What's the point? Death Trooper Specialist. Death Trooper Specialist. Now, Oro, my friendly neighborhood Empire player, put me on the spot with this because apparently I have a hot take. I think you don't take Death Trooper Specialist. Like, I think I would run a point down and take Escort if my list managed to line up with a gap. But this doesn't mean that Death Trooper Specialist is bad. Death Trooper Specialist is very good. I think you take Death Trooper Specialist if the gap is there, and you've already got Death Trooper Escort somewhere else in your Premier list. So, but he doesn't feel like he makes and breaks lists in the same way as some of these others. I'm going to put him above Kraken. Yeah, it's kind of a little line emerging there in my mind as well. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. I think I need to move up the Spectre crew a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to give this a pass. I'm nearly done. I'm going to give it a proper pass later. Darth Vader 3. Is he A tier? He's top of B. I think he's very good. But I think you have to contort yourself into weird positions to fit him into your list. He's not like an automatic, oh yeah, I'm going to take this guy. He's more of a, I don't think he's better than Specialist. In different lists. Obviously, you're playing Inquisitors, or you just think Darth Vader's cool, you want to take him. But he's also got the problem of then you're not taking a primary Darth Vader, which is a significant difficulty because Darth Vader's quite good as a primary. Maybe just because of that, he can't be top of B. So maybe he's more like just because of the opportunity cost of not getting a Vader primary as well. But he's good. K2SO. K2SO is. It's getting really hard because people are on these tiers for different. People are here for different reasons, right? Definitely going to be better than Paz Vizsla. He's very good if you can find the points for him. He does a pretty unique thing. Yeah, like, yeah. But you have to have. I think you have to run him with Cassian somewhere else in the list, and that makes him difficult to fit in because you want to run Cassian with Baze and Churret, so it's a difficult one. So you do end up making real tangible sacrifices, I think, to include K2SO these days. And by these days, I just mean since the Jyn Erso box. Yeah, that's where I think he sits. Bodhi. Bodhi is gonna be some people are really top on Bodhi, and they're gonna hate me for that. And they're gonna go, "Why have you put him halfway down B?" I think Bodhi, his ability to get momentum from just nowhere is not nothing, right? His ability to get momentum from nowhere is not nothing, and that's fine, and that's good, but he's got that steadfast bubble, but he's really hard to get him in lists where you use that to the best of his ability because he's a 3 cost, and you look at your big 5 cost you could put him with. Han and Chewie can't benefit from it because they can't have Rebel with on the opponent's turn, is when they want steadfast, and Baze and Chewie's already steadfast. about half the time, right? So then you're looking at putting him with someone else, like he really likes to do with Rebel Commandos, Rebel Pathfinders rather, because they are both spies um, and rebels, and they get to benefit from both of his buffs, and that's cool. And then you've got a little package, but you're looking at putting that with one of your 7-point primaries, like Endor Leia or Luke Skywalker, and it's just such a limited thing. So I don't rate Bodhi that high. I don't rate Bodhi that high. There you go. Fixer. Fixer is really good. It's funny because people will ask me that people will ask me like, oh, you had a tournament report recently where you lost a lot to Delta Squad, and yet you put Boss halfway down A tier. I think Boss is the worst part of Delta Squad. I think Fixer and Seven Scorch are amazing. In fact, I might even put Fixer up here. I just think he's really, really good. And I think there's genuinely a thing now where in Republic it's like, well, I've got Shakti, I've got Fixer, I've got Snips, and I've got Rex, and then I really have to ask myself long and hard questions if those aren't the 4 primaries that I'm using in a Premier list for Republic. And I mean, there are reasons you might not want to if you were using primary Ahsoka, and then you can't run little Ahsoka, you know, or if you're trying to do something weird and fruity and interesting and special. But I just think those 4 are absolutely it in every possible way. And then finally, Nusari has opened up so much space in Separatists for list building and shenanigans with just his. You can get all these bonus dice. I think he has to go in A tier. I think he has to go up in A tier there. Yeah, I think that's my list. I think I'm looking at it and I don't feel confident. I think what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a big old chunk of this, and I'm actually going to say that all these guys up to here, so I think, are they all going in C? Let me think. S, yeah, 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 yeah. Maybe, yeah. Move them up a little bit. Kraken. Yeah, 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 yeah. We're gonna. No, we need pass there. Happy, I think, with all of these. Yeah, I feel reasonably secure with those. Maybe he does do a fair old bit, but only in the one lit. I'll leave him there. And then let's have that be our C tier. Yeah, yeah. Maybe swap them. I'm tired. I'm doing our best. Yeah, I think that's about right. I think that's what we're going to go for. Send it. Send it. Well, I hope you enjoyed that weird little ramble. I'm going to try and I'm streaming tomorrow. I think we'll see how that goes after my first full day back at the. Today was a training day. I'm still tired. I'm still there. Anyway, I need to get to bed. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'll see you again next time. Cheery, cheery, bye, 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 goodbye.